Hi, everybody. Welcome to another podcast of the Essential Pedagogy podcast. I am so excited today. Let me tell you why. It is still summer. I'm excited. I still got a little bit left. I got a little bit left. I hope everybody had a good holiday. We had Juneteenth, we had 4th of July, and hopefully, you guys had a very safe weekend and you got time to spend with your family, and you guys were able to see fireworks, have cookouts, and all that jazz. I know that it has been a while since we have had opportunities to really get together and do this and do it without a lot of fear of getting sick and gatherings. So we've had like record breaking gatherings in downtown Dallas, and it was really fun. We had some fun times. Uh, but I want to talk to you guys about education. Of course, you know, my podcast is about the public education system, and it is for the purpose of bridging the gap between insiders and outsiders of our community of education, public education, to help build compassion for one another. I am now in a society now that we see lots of different pictures of education, of students, of parents, administrators, and it's really, really hard to sometimes figure out what's real, what's not, what is exaggerated, what's not, how should you interpret some of your experiences with public education, and so I'm helping people to kind of get through some of these things, and for us to all be better stewards of our children, basically, because they are our future. And we, in order to have a better society, we need to have better people, healthier people going forth, with the good things that are in store. There have been some couple of things that have happened as far as laws and things like that. I mean, this country is quickly changing. Affirmative action. We have some pieces of affirmative action just, we fall apart. And we have a lot of people who have thoughts on that. And it does affect public schooling in the higher education realm. Um, but just how much is really debatable, and hopefully, um, this will make other institutions stronger and more vibrant and more competent, so that all of our students will um, have an opportunity to excel to the best of their ability. Of course, we know affirmative action was repealed, and we're going to talk about some of these things going forward. But I have a guest, and he's ready to speak to you guys about finances and education. I was just asked a question about finances and education, about how teacher retirement works, and all of that. We're going to pivot from that because we've talked about that before on this podcast, and we're going to talk about some other things. I have a guest. His name is Lewis Collins, and I am so happy that he is on the show, and want to talk to him about his experience. We're going to start with um, how long he's been in education, his role in education, and some of the experiences he has experienced in education, and what his thoughts are on finances and the navigation of how finances work with public schools. So, without further ado, Mr. Collins, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. But
Thank
so
you for
one of the things,
thank
oh
you for being
yeah,
on the
definitely.
show. Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I just kind of a little bit about myself. I've been doing education for about 19, starting 20 years in the classroom, and then also just finished first year as an admin assistant principal. You know, the goal is to continue to climb the ladder, but grew up in the inner city, Dallas. I'm from Dallas. I've only taught in Dallas ISD, physical education and health, as well as a little science and so forth. Um, Passionate about kids. I was an athlete, you know, played sports, and thought that would be my meal ticket out to be successful in life, and quickly realized it's very competitive. And you know, normally as an athlete, you kind of go about it and you really hone in on that sport, but you forget about your academics. And as I got into college, that quickly changed, understanding that football wouldn't be the best. So I'm very passionate about that, understanding where I came from. Um, very a family that was less fortunate, didn't have much, you know, on welfare, and the struggle was there, and not wanting to have to go through that in life. And I always tell people, if your parents or if you have $1 million waiting on you, education is probably the next best thing. It's not the only thing, but it's probably going to be the next best thing that's going to help someone, you know, be successful in life and be able to really take care of themselves. So we're talking about that's a little bit about me, but we talk about finance and just giving that little backstory about how I began to really take education seriously. It changed because I understood that we're already at a lesser cost. We're not equal. You know, the playing field is not equal growing up in the inner city, growing up in Oak Cliff, South Dallas, the facilities, the employees, even the athletic facilities and things like that, materials, classrooms, the technology. None of that is on the same playing field when you look at some of our northern schools or some of our private schools. And so, what most inner city schools have begun to do is write grants, request more money, and things of that sort. But on average, when we was growing up, each student got about $8,000 uh, for them to attend the school. So if you was attending the public school, that student would get $8,000. Of course, that went to the school district from the state, and of course, that money comes from our national government. Which that's why it's so important that we vote and that we're looking at the people in politics, people who are willing to give more money in education because it's needed. But each student get about 8,000. I think now it's about 10, probably 13,000 now. But that money is allocated for maintenance, for principal, for teachers, cafeteria workers, for food. So all that money goes to the school from the district, but it's allocated. But imagine $13,000 for the whole year. A student is paying or receiving 13,000 for the school year. Where if you was to take a kid to private school, on some of the cheaper private school would cost them about 20,000 a semester, 22 a semester. So most private schools are running people even 40 to 60,000, some more a semester. How can a student compete if a student is paying almost 40,000 for education, where someone in the Dallas area is only receiving about 13,000 for education? So the playing field is not equal, and that's why the government stepped up in some sense where they begin to allocate money. If a school district didn't use all their funds, then they would take that fund and give it to another school who still needed money. That was part of the No Child Left Behind when George Bush was in office back then. And so that's how a lot of schools were able to see more funds. And again, you have people on the team doing grant writing and so forth. But when a parent and when students understand that you're already at a loss, which means that we have some very intelligent kids, but we may not have the equipment and the technology or the staff to meet those needs of those kids. Well, how do they compete against somebody that's at St. Mark's or Green Hill School?
Yeah.
So they're
We
already fighting the
won't,
uphill battle.
yeah, like we won't have like 3D printing machines in every science classroom and stuff like that. Talk to me about Mr. Collins, about how attendance coincides with funding.
Yeah, so attendance, if students are not in school, we lose money. If we just had a pandemic that happened, and we had to find a way to make sure that the kids was logging in because everybody was online. You had to log in. We had to do attendance that was important. That we were still giving an account, which means that if students are not coming to school, or let's say you had a school that had 400 kids, and then they end up 2 3 years later they only have 200. Well, then you cut staffing. Yeah, staffing is being cut. Resources are being cut. The funding is not going to be there to support those 200. So
So
everything, the numbers goes down.
yeah, so okay, so parents don't always understand that when your child doesn't come to school, it it doesn't just always impact that current lesson day, that day of
Right,
lesson, but when you are chronically absent, that affects funding so that we can get resources for them to have a rich education overall, right?
right.
Mhm.
Right, and that starts at the district level. So the district have people that are running those numbers, running those projections. How many students are planning to attend the school next year? What are the neighborhood numbers? How many people reside in the area? What have the numbers showed over the trend? What have the trends been over the last few years? Because we know now most people have choices. Schools are becoming like grocery stores or any other marketing place. They're advertising now because you have charter schools and you have choice schools. Even within the same district, they're competing for those students. A student could live in one area and go across town to another school, where back then we didn't do that. You have to live in that zone in order to attend school.
Mhm.
So imagine if a kid is not even attending school and they're not coming. Yeah, it hurts us big time. It hurts the whole district, and the district have to make those decisions of how much money they will allocate, how much resource they're allocating. And resource, you're talking about teachers, you're talking about computers, laptop, Chromebooks. You're talking about other staffing, psychologists, counselors. Some schools don't have a counselor, or they're only at a on campus half the time. Librarian. Some schools don't even have one because they're saying the numbers are too low, or you may have to share that librarian with another school, and so you lose those positions. I know the school I work at, we don't have a librarian, and we're not going to have one this year because the numbers are low. And so the kids don't go to the library. They don't get to check out books. They don't have time how to research for materials and write papers and stuff like that in the library.
So talk to me, like, so what grade level are you? What school? Not exactly the name of the school. You might want to keep it private. But what grade level are you when you're talking about we don't have a librarian, we don't have a media specialist? That's what they're called now.
Right, right. Yeah, so I'm K5, pre-K5, early childhood through fifth grade,
Okay.
and I'm in the southern Oak Cliff area. That's been around for years, and
Yeah.
they've always, it was a back in the day. It was a prestige school. You That's where you had over 800 kids,
Hmm.
and now we have about 200, right at 200. And what's happening in the South Dallas Oak Cliff area? A lot of people are moving out. The parents are getting older. The kids have left and moved farther south, farther north. And so most of the kids we have are going to be um, generational kids. Their mom went there, their grandmother went there, and now they're going. Their older sibling went there, but they don't live in the neighborhood. The homes are getting older and dilapidated. And so we don't have any buses that come to our school. And we don't have any really apartments around the neighborhood. So that affects the numbers of students that we receive, and that's kind of, I'm in what we call a generational neighborhood, where the kids kind of come there from generation to generation, not because they live in the neighborhood.
Yeah. So we have a question. Some one of our viewers is asking, is the teacher's pay also based on the head count of schools?
No, so teacher pay is not based on the head count, but it affects how many teachers you can have. So the amount that they get paid is not based on that. whatever the district set for their salary, that's what they would get. And they normally set that number based on competitive other districts and what they receive for funding from the state. But if you projected to have 300 kids to come, but you only had 150, well, we got to go back to the drawing board because now we got to cut teachers. We don't have the amount of students that we thought we were going to have. So some teachers lose a job or they have to go find a job. And a lot of times districts are doing a good job at helping teachers find a job or placing them at a different school.
Right.
But yeah, it doesn't determine their pay.
Yeah. And we are sophisticated in forecasting. It didn't used to be that way, but
Yeah.
we're a little bit more sophisticated in forecasting. A lot of people don't understand that there's so many entities in school districts or so many departments. There's logistics, there's all types of things that make school work, right? So,
Yes. Very political. Very political. The more you go up uh, in the district, you understand there's a lot of politics involved, especially when it comes to funding, when it comes to staffing. There's a lot of politics involved, and a lot of times we tell parents to get out and do surveys and vote and do these things, but some of that thing, some of you still have to do them. That's due diligence, but some of those things, eh, you can get out there and survey and say we don't want this school to close or we want this school to open. We want a school for this, and based on numbers and money and stuff, it won't or will not happen. You have a LeBron James who could go open up a school because he has the funding and the money to do it, or
yeah.
you have these mega churches now, they're opening up schools because they have support and they have funding from the state and they have funding from other people as well that helps the school to run
Mhm.
as well. So it kind of makes a big difference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So talk to us more a little bit about like the school choice. I know you're kind of segueing into that and
Hmm.
about financing with the school choice, like the charter schools, things like that compete with the public education sector.
Yeah, so with the school choice, Michael Hinojosa, who just kind of retired and left the district last year, he really was a big push of this. The goal was everybody doesn't go to college, which we know that to be true. But how do we make sure every child can be successful? So now we brought about trade school. If y'all remember, Skyline was one of the few schools you could go there and get a beauty license and mechanic. So they was like, well, every school should have that. So we have schools that they're a regular comprehensive school, but also you can get a trade in business. You can get a trade in welding. Skyline still have their different clusters that you can go in. You got mechanic at different schools like Molina and Skyline. Pinkston has a law program that you can go through their school and receive, training in that field. And so now the goal is that if you apply and you live not in the zone, but you apply for that cluster or that trade, then you can actually go to that school. Not living in that zone, you have to get accepted in. And so that's what choice schools are. And they're starting them now. It used to be just started at high school. Now they're making them like these STEAM and STEM academies. They're starting them from kinder to eighth grade, where kids are applying even in the kindergarten to get to certain schools. So a lot of neighborhood schools are losing kids to these choice schools, and then you have charter schools that are very competitive in their academics and their salary pay for teachers as well. We're not just losing students; we're losing staff members too,
Mhm.
as well. So you have that, and now what's taking place, and we're going through this at my campus. We're marketing. We just got through doing. We met with a marketing team from I think Oklahoma, the district hired them to work with certain schools, like my school being an older school. And we talked about all the things we're doing. They shot a video shoot. They're posting that stuff on Hulu when they have commercial breaks, YouTube doing commercial breaks, little ads. And they're going to be marketing our school because we're trying to get our numbers up. And that's what districts are doing. They're marketing and they're competing. But we have two other schools that's right in the neighborhood where we're located. So we're competing against those same schools. And that's the thing. We're not just competing against charter schools to get students. We're competing against other schools within the same district. And you would think it wouldn't be the case, because of zoning.
Yeah.
But it is the case. Yeah.
Yeah, and Catholic schools, and um,
Yeah.
like you were saying, these mega churches are coming up with schools and things like that.
Parents have a choice. They have a choice now. So, and that's the thing. And I
I don't
think
know. I don't know if it's a bad thing. Like I feel
it's
like
not a
it's a
bad
good
thing.
thing. I think it's a good thing. But what makes things challenging is that the kids that we do have in the schools, the numbers that you do have that you're working with, um, we have to really inspire the parents to be the kind of parents that are so involved that they make sure the kids are coming to school, that they make sure that they're taking care of the supplies that are given to them to use by the district, and not, tear them up.
Right. Correct. Correct.
Like that, because then that cuts into the money for marketing, budgeting, you know, um,
Correct.
teacher numbers, not necessarily their salaries, but the number of teachers per child, per
Hmm.
classroom, that kind of thing. So those are the kinds of things that I feel like, if you can afford private school, you're not in a position to transport your child from one place to another. Public school is a very good option, but we have to be very mindful that we have to be good stewards of this option, right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. So, Mr. Collins, I would love to continue this conversation with you, because I think you have rich knowledge on the money sector when it comes to how districts spend money in order to make our entire community more successful, as far as teaching our children. So, I'd like for you to come back at some point. We have this podcast, same bat time, same bat place, first and third Thursdays. Um,
Yeah. That shocked me when I heard that the first time. Mm.
yeah,
Well,
we
I'm delighted to be
okay.
here, and I'm more than welcome to be back and continue the conversation. It's a lot. It's a lot of information. It's a lot that we don't know that we need to just become knowledgeable and more intelligent on, so we can make wise decisions, and so we can help our
Yeah,
communities. It
yeah.
helps our communities.
And I feel like parents need to be aware. They need to know exactly what's going on, how money is spent, how we handle things, how we try to enrich children the best way we can, so that they can be mindful in how to run their households in order to complement our, mutual goals. Our
Mm,
all of our goals is
mm.
to have a better society, and I truly believe that. But a lot of times, people do not understand how their personal actions
Well, yeah.
impact the greater good and the greater picture, right? So,
Right, and education is one of the few areas in society where we blow money. And what I mean by that, if you took a class in college and the professor counseled class, then we're excited. We're excited, like wow! But we pay tuition for college; it's not free. Why am I excited that the professor counseled class? I missed the day, and
mhm.
it's the same thing. And it starts
Public
in
education and lower education, yeah, yeah,
yeah, it starts there, and kids are wasting that knowledge that where they're supposed to be taught, and they're supposed to be taught to thrive and learn, but they rather have a phone day or a free day. And if the teacher's giving them that, then that's a cool teacher. Well, they're robbing them. They're robbing them. And there's few kids that are saying, well, we're not learning nothing. There's some kids that want to learn. And when they're pushing that and when they're coming to school, and that's important, then you're getting your money's worth. And we know the kids don't understand that tax
yeah,
dollars, but the
yeah,
parents do. And
yeah.
we want them to. Yeah, kids are to be learning at school.
And this is why this podcast is really geared towards parents and geared towards our, you know, society, our adult society, so we can understand what they can do to help and be compassionate to what we're trying to do, and us be compassionate to what they're trying to do. and how they're trying to survive. So I thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate your time. We'll have to go talk offline so that we can figure out another date so that you can follow this up and we can have some more talking points. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Well, guys, thank you so much for paying attention to the show. Um, that was just a little bit of a snippet. We had a little bit of a late start because I had to reintroduce the podcast, let you know what it's all about. We always have new listeners, new watchers. So I just wanted to make it restate pedagogy. It is the science of teaching, the science and art of teaching, and that's the reason why our podcast is named the um, the um, the Essential Pedagogy Podcast. I came up with the essential part because during the pandemic, we talked about we talked about the essential jobs. We who knew that bus drivers and people in the grocery stores and things like that they were essential, and I it was a eye opener that they felt like teachers and education was that essential because I felt like not a lot of people even think about the education system as really being needed. It's just something that we notice around that it's part of our routine. It's how people have place to put their kids while they work. But essential, that was a big word for me. And I was like, oh, so we're essential. Okay. All right. So if we're essential, then I feel like we need to have a roundtable and conversation around that. How we're essential, where your tax dollars are going, why we need to have better attitudes around education and especially public education, because majority of our workers in society come from public education. And so we just need more rallying around public education and how we're going to make this world a better place to live. Not that it's horrible, it's not overly oppressive, but it can certainly slip into that if we're not very careful and we don't cultivate what we have and value what we have. So I just have this podcast out here so that we can come together and come up with some solutions. Talk to me about, reach out to me and tell me some of the things that you just wonder. Or if you didn't wonder something, but from the podcast, listening to what we've talked about, what did it spur in your mind about, the things that, how money is handled in the school districts and how things are provided for your children and how we execute things in education. So, like to talk to you guys about more things about what you might be interested in education. So I appreciate that. I've been just really trying to get my mind wrapped around getting back into that classroom and helping students and also tutoring because I do that also. Time and attention tutoring is another one of my projects that I do where I help place teachers with struggling students, for parents. Um, don't have a lot of ways like I don't have a YouTube channel for time and attention tutoring, but I do have a way on Facebook. If you search for me, time and sign and attention tutoring, it is on Facebook, and you can communicate with me on that. So just looking forward to the fall and serving our students and making this place a better place. Hi, how you doing? So just wanted to tell you guys I cannot wait until next time. Hopefully we can get Mr. Collins on next time. If not, then I can get to some of your questions that you might have. And until next time, This is Essential Pedagogy. Thank you so much for listening.